I just want to do God's will.
What you're seeking is a blessing from God.
You must expect a miracle.
You have the power of choice.
Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Life Today Live. Good to have you here. And if you were paying attention at the very beginning of that, you saw that I had a website up instead of my intro, and that was for Taya and Chris Kyle's foundation. Because my guest today is Taya Kyle, and it's always fun to talk to her. And she's got so many irons in the fire, and she is on fire. And she's just one of those that when I got the opportunity, they're like, "Hey, you wanna talk to Taya Kyle again?" I'm like, "Yeah." What are we gonna talk about? And I'm like, "I don't know." And I'm like, "Great." So Taya, great to have you again on Live Today. This time on the Live Today Live, which we didn't have last time you were here. Good to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I appreciate you having me back.
Oh yeah, and I love having you on because there's just a lot of things going on with you, and unfortunately for you, you've walked through some really dark times when you lost your wife Chris. For people that don't know, the movie American Sniper chronicled part of his life, and Taya tragically lost him years ago, and because of that, I see a depth in you and kind of a work in progress where God's really done a lot of things with your life. How are you doing now? I mean, all these, how long has it been? 10 years, 12 years? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been, it'll be 10 years next year. So 9 years this year. Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, what you've been through is not easy, but yet you seem to have some joy in your life.
I do. I really do, especially lately. And I think it's important maybe to note that I've had moments of joy along the way, or maybe actually, let me rephrase that. Maybe not joy, maybe just happiness, the moments that you laugh and all that. But the true joy, I do see it differently now. It's a different definition than I would have had before, because joy is a depth, right? There's something that you have joy in spite of the things that come your way. And I think I'm really there. And I truly did not think that I would have it again. And I remember actually my aunt a few years ago, I was sitting at the dining room table at my parents' house, and she said, "Honey, I want to tell you something. And she feels, she definitely has like a Holy Spirit thing that kind of runs through her, and she's very comfortable saying what she believes is sort of coming through God." And so I knew it was one of those moments where she said, "I want you to wake up every morning and put your feet on the floor in excited anticipation of what's coming." And I mean, the tears, just like alligator tears, those quiet tears where your heart is broken, you have nothing to say, but you can't help, they're just spilling over. And I just looked down, and she said, "It's going to happen." And I said, "Okay." I don't know but I knew, I don't think I can put my feet on the floor and expect that today. And it was years. I mean, I would say it's really been even maybe in the last month that I believe that I can do that. And that's a long time. And it strikes me as both inspiring for people who are going through a hard time, that even though you don't believe you'll ever get there, that you probably will, if you just keep getting up, showing up, and asking God to do what God's going to do. He will do it. I can be a stubborn person, and I think God was willing to give me a lot of joy earlier. I haven't shared this with anybody before publicly, but I'll tell you this because it, I think, illustrates what we're talking about really well. There was a morning, probably, it might have been 2 or 3 years ago. I lose track of time, but I woke up and I went, like, I had this happiness. I mean, out of a deep sleep, and I just felt, I guess, joy. And I felt this weightlessness of something that was like, it was like Chris's murder never happened. And the missing of him wasn't there either. Gosh, it makes me want to cry now. And I had such a lightness and a joy, and I went, "Oh my gosh." And then I went, "Oh God, I think Chris left me. Like, I think he left. I think he left and said, 'You're okay, baby, go live your life.'" And I was just like, no, I'm not ready. Right. Like, I felt like I wanted that pain back, I guess. As weird as that sounds, I don't know, but I was like, please don't leave me. And the weight just came right back. That's weird to me that I've always wanted to be really happy. It is weird to me that I would have that feeling, but I did, and it came back.
I think the hard part for us, and I obviously haven't been what you've been through. That's so traumatic. There's an extra weight there, but it's not a betrayal of someone you love to live your life and to have the joy. It's really what they would want. You know that in your head, but to feel it in your heart's a whole different thing. And we can chain ourselves to the past in a way that's unhealthy. I think you honor him in the things you do and moving on with your life, even without him, but yet always with him. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And it's so nuanced. And like you said, logically, of course you would want me to be joyful. I think for me, there was this part of me that said, I'm not ready to live without you, even if that means that having you with me is painful. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I find it fascinating because what I really wanted to be was happy. It came down to this moment of, if that means that I don't feel you with me, I don't want to do this. And so recently, probably in the last couple of months, and I've been trying to do a good job of putting these, some of these moments into social media just to share with people, because I know there are a lot of people suffering, and it's not going to resonate for everybody, but I was trying to explain, there's this moment where I realized I have to let him go. And I think it went back to sort of that moment of meaning I have to let him go. I even picture sometimes in heaven, let him go, even though, okay, logically, I believe in heaven, you can be in multiple places at one time. I don't think time exists there the same. I think he's fine staying with me as long as I need him to. I also think he's with other people at the same time, right? Like I get all of this logically in what I believe is heaven. And there was this part of me that thought, geez, Taya, like let him go, not have to worry about you too, right? And that's an emotional thing, not a logical thing. But I think he was like, man, babe, if you want it, I'll stay. But this is not the best for you. So I got the courage a couple months ago to say, I'm going to let you go now. I'm going to let you go. And whatever that meant to me is different than some people might perceive it. So I got comments that said, I lost my spouse and I'll never let them go. You can keep walking, but you never truly change. You never really leave them behind, or you never. And I know that. And that's the issue talking about grief, is that the words even are nuanced and complex for people. So when I said letting go, I can tell you this, it was like this, I'm going to let it, that weight of wanting you with me this way, gone, let it go. And what happened is I got this joyful presence of him, right? It was almost like me thinking I need to let him go was like, he is not going to be holding my hand in this life. I need to let that idea go. And then he just gets to be in the spiritual realm and I get to love him. And of course he never leaves my heart space. Sure. But the pain of it, I guess, is what I needed to have the courage to let go. And I thought when I said that I would be truly letting him go. I had to be ready to accept that I might be doing that. And like God often does, when we think we're letting go of something, we realize, oh, it was total freedom and it's not actually gone. Right. It's just the weight of it that's gone. Ooh,
right.
Sorry.
Right. There's in the 23rd Psalm, we like to quote at funerals, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. A few things about that strike me while in that process. One is it's real. The shadow is real. The darkness is real. And so we don't need to deny that. The grief is real. The pain is real. But there's only a shadow when there's a light that exists on the other side. And for a lot of people, that valley is a long, long thing that you can't see the end of, but you have to kind of get up every day and do some walking, because if you keep walking, you will get through that valley of the shadow of death. And that's a process. And, Lord knows I'm not here to judge anyone in their walk through that. I'm just here to encourage someone to keep walking and that there is a light on the other side. And I think you're beginning to experience some of that.
I totally agree. And I'm so glad you're encouraging people, because there's this thing that I've realized is it's for me, my dad had this moment in time, and it's a much longer story, but the short version of this is I wasn't sure if he loved me for me, the quirky, messy, rebellious teen that I was, or if he just loved me because I was his daughter. And he wanted to make sure that every rule he was putting in place was just so that he did a good job as a father. And I expressed that to him, right? And he said, oh, Taya, I do feel a responsibility to the community and the world to raise a good daughter. And I do feel that there are certain things that I need to do just to be a good father. When it comes to loving you, he said, and he barely teared up, right? But it was one of those moments he teared up and he said, "The sun rises and sets, and I love you." Those are constants that you can count on, right? And ever since then, I've thought about this, and I think of it from a God the Father perspective. Every time you see a sunrise and a sunset, you know it's the world is still turning, God is still with us, there is a consistency. So when in pain and the dark of night comes, that is usually the hardest time for people, because our souls are meant for light, not darkness. So I believe when the darkness of night comes in and we are in pain, it becomes a very dangerous time. And what I'd like to encourage people to do is wait for the sunrise. Just wait for that one more sunrise, one more confirmation that God's love is constant and that it will rise and set again. And that one day it will make more sense than it does today. But sometimes it's as simple as hour to hour, minute to minute. But I like that visual of sunrise, sunset. God loves me. It's going to be okay. World keeps turning, whether I want it to or not.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that quite a bit. All right. Now, there is something that has demanded your time for all these years, like the world turning, whether you like it or not, and that's being a mother. This is honestly, I don't know how my wife did it. Maybe it's because I wasn't as much help as I should have been, but I know it was. But as a single mom, that's got to be difficult. And yet, you're doing it, and you're doing it every day, and this is your world. What are you learning through that process?
A ton. And I'm going to tell you this too, that I've looked at the loss of Chris as an amputation. I was very much counting on loving him for life. I knew his job was dangerous and I could lose him at any time, right? So I look at this from a God perspective and say, if as a parent, if your child had to have an amputation, you knew it had to happen, there was no changing it, and you knew it was going to happen, what would you do? You would prepare them a little bit at a time. You wouldn't say, here's what's going to happen, here's the amputation, here's all the risks, right? You would give them little chunks of information, little preparation, maybe introduce them to other people that had an amputation. You would kind of just give them a little exposure. You would be with them during it, and then you would be with them after and say, okay, here's what we're going to do, babe. This isn't going to stop you. We're going to go out and we're going to live this life, and you are going to be powerful, and you are going to learn that even with an amputation, you can do all these things that you did before, maybe differently, and you're going to do more, right? And so when I look at losing Chris and being a single mom now, I think God treated losing him as an amputation, meaning in the very beginning when Chris would go on deployments and I was a single mom, I was like, it's freaking hard. And I love it on the one hand, and it's freaking hard. And it's hard for anybody, spouse, home or not. And then I would think if he was here, it would be easier. And I had to go through some of those feelings of resentment. You're not here. If you were here, when you're here, it's better. And slowly but surely, I got more used to it, more accustomed to it. And so I have often thought when he was killed and I was full-time single momming it, my kids were 8 and 6.5, and I was used to it. God had already prepared me to how to be a single mom. The difference was there was never going to be a break again sort of thing with him there. And the other difference, of course, is now we're in huge grief because he was a phenomenal father. My kids are grieving. We had lawsuits coming at us. We had business things. The rough draft to American Sniper was turned in the day before he was killed. We had the movie. I mean, it was like a tornado of attacks that hadn't stopped until, and I believe that I'll have more attacks because that's just life. But I mean, huge attacks that the last one I really had to work through started in 2019 when I started discovering something that had been happening for the prior years. And it took me a couple of years to get through. So having said all that, I don't know that I could have done all of that as a single mom if I had never been a single mom before. Right. And I think there's a difference too between being a single mom and an only parent, right? Single mom sometimes is you share custody, you do this, but when you're the only one, you got to start being dad and mom and start accessing a masculine side of you, a feminine side of you, nurture, hold the line, pray a lot, ask for grace a lot from the kids, a lot.
Yeah, no, and that is a lot. And the fact that you're not only doing that, and I would think doing it well, although I'm sure as a parent, there's days you feel like you're not. That's just the nature of it. You're also doing a lot of other things too. I mean, when I say you got a lot of irons in the fire, I'm not kidding. I'm going to show people the website for the Taya and Chris Kyle Foundation. And interestingly, you're talking, right there on the homepage, it talks about marriage. What are you doing in the way of helping other people who are, military, first responders, those types of things?
Well, I appreciate you asking, because it really is a passion. And it is one of those things where in the first year of Chris being killed, I had a few things that really struck me. One is we were so blessed to have made it. The divorce rate in the enlisted guys, SEAL teams, was 97% divorce rate. So the fact that we even made it was incredible. The fact that God let us end on a high note was one of the biggest blessings of my life. And I realized that the service people who are out there who might lose a spouse, I want them to be able to end on a high note too, if God forbid their life ends. And B, how do we help more people who can get through it? Because it was the gift of a lifetime to be able to come out of it. I mean, we said to each other all the time before we would go to sleep, like, we're so blessed. You're whole and you're healthy, and we have 2 kids and we're married still. Like, what a blessing this all is. So I thought someday I'll start that, because Chris and I had talked about starting a foundation before he was killed, but it's really hard and it takes a lot of work and there's a lot of rules and blah, blah, blah. So I thought one day I'll do it, but there were 3 main reasons why there was no way I could start it during that year that everything was happening like I told you about. And then I realized it had to be God and no one else, because one of those big things fell in my lap with nothing. I had nothing to do with it. And I was like, okay, but there's still 2 main reasons why I couldn't possibly do this foundation right now. Couldn't have been more taxed, even though I was staying up all night and working as a method of avoiding grief as much as I could, crying through it, that kind of thing. And then the second one dropped. And then a couple months later, still in 2013, the year Chris was killed, the third one dropped. And I went, oh my gosh, are you kidding me, God? Like, you're putting these things down, which means the foundation starts now. I just knew it, right? And I'm thinking, there's no way I can do this now. But I'm feeling like God put this in my lap. So I go, okay, God, then it's your mission and not mine. And I just don't want to screw it up. And it has truly been that way since 2013. It became a 501c3 in 2014. So let me not get too hung up on that. But I say that to say, there have been things that have gone attack after attack, and God is the one that pulls it out. I promise you. I mean, I could tell you story after story of having an opening and somebody calling in and it's the perfect person. Every person I hired maybe didn't go as well as I thought. And then every person that he put there just seemingly out of the blue has been amazing. So anyway, there's a thing. So the Army did a study showing that 80% of service suicides are relationship related. That's different than the community at large. And it's really important to know that has nothing to do with any failure on the part of the spouse, nothing to do with that. What it illustrates though, is in the service community, service members who are facing evil every day, they need a safe place potentially more than most. They need a success story potentially more than most. And they need to know that they can do it well at home. Like, that's their heart, even though this is their purpose outside. They want to be a success at home, and they don't have the tools to do it, because a service marriage is different than a civilian marriage, period. End of story. You are afraid of death. You have no accountability and responsibility as far as schedule. You cannot count on your spouse your service member spouse to come home at a certain time, to make a birthday party. You are living different lives. You're trying to find connections. I could go on, but I know we don't have time. But they are different. And so what they need are tools that are realistic for their marriage. They need quick check-ins. How do I connect with my spouse when I only have 5 minutes? How do I do it when one of us is deployed and one of us is somewhere else? How do we navigate the world of sex with all of this other stuff? How do we navigate talking about a child who is so severely abused that a police officer saw, the sex trafficking victims that they see? How do they manage that and compartmentalize it and share with their spouse and be a father? And it's complicated. So we spend 2 years with them. Wow. 2 years. And they go through 5 programs, and they're all studied by Baylor University. And they have proven to be statistically so good that the statisticians, the researchers, had to study them twice because the results were so good, which tells me they want this to work. They just need the tools. Yeah. And so for us to be able to find the tools and connect them to other service people who can help is huge. And one more thing that's really important to this, they're not going to be able to talk to people in their small community, because you can't, as a spouse, I couldn't share with another spouse, hey, Chris is having a hard time, because if he was, then that spouse tells her husband, and then it gets back to the teams, and then he doesn't get a promotion, right? So we're connecting them with people across the country who have no bearing on their career, so they can truly be stripped down, vulnerable, raw with their emotions, and get to the heart of things. So I could talk for hours about it, but yes, that's what we do, and I'm super passionate about it.
Well, and that's what I like is that, again, your sense of purpose is not gone. If anything, it's called out even stronger. You mentioned something, and you mentioned you're doing stuff on social media, and people can connect with you, especially on Facebook and Instagram. I've noticed.
Yes.
But you said something recently in one of your Instagram posts that I thought was really good, and it applies to everybody. And that's this idea of maintaining an attitude of learning, which repositions mistakes, and more of an Edison way, where Edison said, "I didn't fail. I just figured out however many hundreds of ways how not to make a light bulb," until he made a light bulb. Right.
Right.
What's that done for you?
So it's been huge. A friend of mine told me about it a few years ago, and I tried to do it on big things. And I'm now seeing that doing it on the little things, which you so wisely told me before the show, is probably the most important thing, which is super wise and truth bomb. But the thing is, there's a learning mindset and a fixed mindset. People who are ambitious and even, strong Christians who want to do everything right for God, people who want to be the perfect parent, any of those, right? We kind of go, didn't do it the way I wanted to. I suck. I'm a failure. We beat ourselves up, or we just go, it gets a little bit out of hand when our heart is so good to do the best we can do. So the fixed mindset says you passed or you failed. Yeah. You did it correctly or incorrectly, and learning mindset says, okay, this happened. What can I look at here to do differently next time? And when I look at it differently, that experience has a lot of value, because I just got an opportunity to grow and chase my heart that wants to be better every day. I mean, you weren't created to be perfect, but I do think there's a difference here of life is so busy and we screwed it up, and we don't stop to go, you know what? That didn't go the way I thought. So let me just pause for 60 seconds and think, if I could strategize it differently next time. And you have to be careful not to go, I should have done it this way. No. It'll be interesting to see how I do it differently next time. Right. It's a big difference of how you talk to yourself. Yeah. Like, I'm curious to know when I do it differently next time, what the outcome will be. And if it's still not, then I'm curious to see the next time when I strategize a little differently, how it works.
Yeah. And that really is a godly attitude of always maintaining an attitude of learning, because we're not as perfect as we think we are. And we beat ourselves up for it, which is it's just counterproductive. Yeah. I think it goes back to this core aspect of God that we are supposed to have in our lives towards ourselves, as well as towards others, and that is grace. Okay, what I'm hearing you talk about in kind of an underlying thing through everything you've been through and you're doing and are going through is grace. Are you sensing a lot of grace?
Huge grace. Oh my gosh, huge grace. And it's been a big theme in my life to learn how to give it to myself, to others, to understand the grace of God and Jesus. And I'll tell you, I love this connection that we have when we talk, because there was something that you just said, and I wanted to share this. When my daughter, I remember vividly, she was probably 5, and they come by this perfectionist attitude, honestly. And so I was laying in bed, probably taking a nap or waking up in the morning, I don't know. But I looked over and she's, eye level standing next to the bed. And she goes, "Mama." And I said, "What?" And she goes, "I did something I want to tell you about." And I was like, okay. And she felt so bad, and she was so upset because she didn't do something the, right way. And I said, "Baby." She goes, "What?" And I said, "Let me ask you something." She goes, "What?" And I said, "Are you Jesus?" And she goes, "What?" I said, "Are you Jesus?" And she goes, "What?" And she laughed. And I said, "Baby, if you're not Jesus, you can't be perfect. We were never supposed to be perfect. This is just human. You're good." Right. And I think that's, still a good way for us to look at ourselves like, am I Jesus? No. So why am I expecting myself to be the only perfect human here? And instead of beating and I think sometimes we beat ourselves up because we're convinced if we just beat ourselves up enough, it'll motivate us to do it differently next time. And that's a lie. That is a lie. It does not motivate. It just sets us up for angst. What will have us do it differently next time is grace. And that has been a huge lesson for me. including the way that we talk to ourselves. Like if I go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. My child is learning that, right? And if I talk to myself that way, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to talk to other people that way.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to think about them that way, even if I don't say it. And so, sorry about that. And so the better thing to do is to say, they're not perfect. I'm not perfect. They have a complicated life. It's probably more nuanced than I know. So what? Let it be, right? I mean, let it be.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that an Amazon delivery, or do we have a surprise guest on the show?
I think I have a surprise guest on the show. I was very careful. I thought about saying, hey, I'm going to be doing this. Don't, nobody come to the no. But it's inevitable. It is inevitable that it happens. I have no backup, like no friend or kid here to be like, I'll get it.
Oh, do you need to get the door?
Nope, I do not. You have my attention.
Well,
yeah.
we're about done, so if they can hang on just a second. Because the last thing I wanted to do is give you an opportunity to talk about the things going forward that you're doing, because I know you have a lot planned, and you're on mission. You're on mission still.
I love that you said that. That is, yes, I am. And I forgot to tell you before. So we have a jewelry line called Warrior Collections. And I forgot about that when I told you what I was doing lately. But when you said mission, it sparked this thing in me. So Warrior Collections is a jewelry line that is a reminder for people that you were created with a warrior spirit and you are on mission in this life. Meaning if you think of somebody training for battle, they are going into something knowing it's going to be hard. They're just trying to learn the techniques and tactics to do it well, survive it, and thrive. That's what we're doing in life. God gave us a warrior spirit. It's a battle. Somebody's persistent. and they're going to see who's more persistent. Remember I told you I was stubborn? So anyway, that's Warrior Collections. And part of it is that the pieces are specifically designed with a texture to them that's very grounding. So if they have different messages, I am with you is one of them. I am the Alpha and the Omega. It's all about remembering when life gets stressful, touch that piece and think, I'm safe right now. I am a child of God. I am a warrior. I can do this. So it's about putting on sort of this armor of God in a physical, tangible way. Mm-hmm. And then I have another project, YKC, which is Your Kingdom Come. And my business partner, Dave Drever, and I are working for God's will to be done. When he gives these kids God-given talent for media, entertainment, and technology, and they go out into the world to try to use it, the world says, fantastic, sell your soul. Because if you want to use your God-given talent, you have to do it this way in ways that you weren't raised to do or don't want to do. And so for those kids, what we're going to do is bring them in. And Dave is so well connected to so many people that we can connect them with people in the industry who are Christian, who know that they had to kind of do something that they didn't want to do to get it. And we're going to launch them from a perspective of faith and goodness, where they can use their God-given talent to do something that is good for the kingdom and good for them, instead of something that's very destructive for them. So that's our way to try to just at least help launch some other people, because neither one of us need to be in the spotlight. We wanted to start launching other people. So I'm super excited about that. And then we have the foundation. Part of YKC is also we have a publishing arm that we just are signing the deal on, I think today or tomorrow. So a lot of people who have content that they can't get published right now, like I have a book series called Prayers for Bears for kids, and it comes from our grief and how we prayed through it and different things that I think kids can adopt. My daughter's going to illustrate it. We're going to launch that. So yeah, a lot of iron in the fire. But believe it or not, I'm trying to find balance and just saying it'll happen when God says it's going to happen. And I have learned not to worry about when. Yeah.
I like, though, that God's given you a vision for different things.
Yes, me too.
And all a part of his kingdom. So you might need to go get the door. So I will say thank you, and I will point people to the website warriorcollections.com, yes, and as well as the Taya and Chris Kyle Foundation as we exit here. But thanks. It's just good to catch up with you. I love what God's doing in your life, and then to go and reach others. And it's exciting to see. So thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you for your time. I love what you're doing for people too. You're constantly inspiring them and encouraging them. It's amazing.
Appreciate you guys hanging out, watching. I mean, is this not a great interview? This is just lift you up today. And so appreciate you guys watching. Invite you to come back, more great interviews, and check out all the different websites for all the great things that God's using Taya to inspire people and help people. warriorcollections.com. I put that in chat. TACKF.org, the Taya and Chris Kyle Foundation.org. And if you want to connect with her on Facebook and Instagram, Taya Kyle, you'll find her. We'll see you again next time here on Life Today Live.